Well, thank you everybody for coming out today. I'm going to be openly honest with you. There are a ton of moving pieces, and this is something we typically, so I guess I should do introductions. My name is Matt Smith. I'm a technology specialist with Microsoft. I've got Mike here with me.
Yeah, Mike Wilmot. I'm with Microsoft as well, and out of Denver, Colorado.
And so we're in the field team, so we want to kind of take back some of our lessons learned. We have quite a few healthcare accounts, and there's quite a few challenges with business intelligence in general. And when the cloud comes into that picture, also some complexities there as well. And what we traditionally do with these types of things is we actually will bring our customers into the Microsoft Office and have multiple displays, multiple devices, right? So there's a lot of orchestration happening with these activities. So, you know, and there's going to be a few transitions, so I just ask to bear with us as we go through that.
Probably a lot of white space. We'll be giving candy away, and we're both SQL Server architects as well at Microsoft, and between both of us, we've probably been working on SQL Server since at least the SQL 7.0 days, right?
I'm not that old.
All right. Yeah. Sorry. He's disrespectful to his elders, but anyway. Okay. Yeah. So I've been with Microsoft since the late '90s, doing architecture, and I also, like Matt said, have healthcare accounts. Been working with SQL Server since SQL Server 7.0, actually a little bit 6.5, and then 2000, 2005, 8, 8R2, 12, and now 14. And Matt and I both do BI work as well as Azure work, and as well as some .NET development. So we kind of cover the whole spectrum, as well as things like machine learning and have healthcare accounts. We have several dozen.
Saving young babies, curing world hunger.
Exactly.
Yeah, we do a lot, but.
So that's it. Yeah.
So from an overall agenda, we did some brief introductions here. Obviously, we'll get into the content here in a second. Mm-hmm. And we've got some very key scenarios, and we really want to change this up a little bit. We want this to be an experiential session. So this isn't us talking down at you. This is us kind of participating through these different activities. So Mike and I are going to do some role playing here, and hopefully you can have some fun with us as we do that. We want to kind of take a little bit of a pivot and kind of focus on how do we enable people to actually collaborate, right? In the BI space, in the Office 365 space. So hopefully you can, hopefully we do a good job at landing that message. So like I said, the fundamental premise here is the whole is greater than the sum of the parts, right? And I grew up in the late 80s and 90s, so I know I'm still a bit of a spring chicken, But I grew up with this kind of corny cartoon. You can see it's somewhat dated because this is like the best resolution of the image I could find. And so what this was is this was a cartoon, and these were 5 teenagers, all from different parts of the world, all with different specialties that were fighting for the environment, right? Some people were trying to improve air quality, some were fighting for the ozone, some were trying to grow trees, right? So that's kind of what it was. Everybody had their specialty. Everybody kind of worked on their own thing. And when they came into a problem that they couldn't solve, they would all come together as a team and say, if we put our powers together, we can really put something terrific together. And that was a superhero. So does anybody know who Captain Planet is? Yes. See, he thought no one was going to get this. So
it was Wonder Twins in my generation.
Yeah,
but anyway.
So I could sing you the song. I still remember it because I would watch it before I went to school in the morning. But in this case, we're positioning Office 365 as that platform. Am I saying that it's a silver bullet? Absolutely not. But I am here to kind of tell you that as we kind of put all these different products and offerings together, we can really kind of break through some of the barriers that we encounter in business intelligence. And in these cases today, specifically in the healthcare scenario. So.
Yeah, and to Matt's point, what I lead with when I go to my customers is, especially in BI and across the application platform stack, is that what I believe Microsoft excels at really well is the end-to-end application platform stack. I think that's where we're competitive and actually a leader across the industry, to include companies like Google, Apple, Oracle, et cetera. And from a BI standpoint, per this slide, I really think that we excel in our BI positioning, both on the left side, which is great client tools, putting things like Power BI in analysis services, building that into a in-memory model that lives in Excel, where you can do lots and lots of in-memory analysis, hundreds of millions, billions of records in Excel, publish that up to a cloud service or SharePoint service, either on-premise or in the cloud. And I've done dozens of POCs with my customer around SharePoint on the right side. Having SharePoint up in the cloud now takes a lot of that heavy lifting, a lot of that maintenance, a lot of that expertise out of the client's hands and allows the client to really focus on deployment of these BI assets up into the cloud and slice and dice those assets by leveraging the built-in BI semantic model. So we'll kind of cover that in a second. But I just think our strength from a Microsoft standpoint is both the client tools on the left and the server resources on the right of this slide.
So just a little bit of my background and why we're kind of positioning, Mike will kind of touch on these scenarios here in a second. I mentioned that MEC experience, that Microsoft Experience Center. Has anybody participated in that? Who's in healthcare in here? Wow. Guess that was a good buzzword for our summary, huh? Okay. Who's in IT in healthcare? Okay. Who's in BI? Oh, wow, this is awesome. So you guys, I'm preaching to the choir here. You guys are just, I should see a lot of nods and smiles as I kind of go through this. This was, yeah?
I have a quick question. Everything going to be tied to 365?
So the concepts here is breaking down the barriers of collaboration, right? So by no means is that tied directly to Office 365, but we're using that to facilitate the conversation. So if there's a question around how we can do this, we can certainly elaborate on that. But in this case, we're going to display that through Office 365. And that's kind of a great segue because, as I mentioned, my previous life, I was a BI architect before I was actually working for Microsoft. And, I was on quite a few different data warehouse projects. And it was generally IT driven. And we would always kind of work through requirements and work with the business to get all this information into a format that they can consume. And we would never get user adoption. Who struggles with user adoption in BI? Great. Okay, so when I was actually sitting in one of these MEC experiences with one of my customers in Phoenix, I had a big aha moment, right? Because we always kind of attribute BI to numbers and reports and dashboards, and if I could just create this really slick-looking dashboard, I bet they'll come, right? And typically, getting users to go off of their old solutions and onto a new solution is a big challenge as well. And so when I was sitting in this MEC, the collaboration piece just completely blew my mind, right? I've been a part of LinkedIn. I'm really big on LinkedIn. I'm really big on Twitter. I'm on Facebook occasionally. And I never really applied that to the enterprise. And when people think, why is Yammer in the enterprise? Why is social in the enterprise? I think we're really trying to show you that today and how that's going to light up user adoption in the BI space. You want to kind of touch on the scenarios?
Yeah, so what we've chosen is 5 different scenarios, everything from organizational learning to collaboration to patient experience, storytelling, and prescriptive care coordination. Like Matt said, we've got lots of moving parts. We've got little things to show who we are, little costumes from Matt's wife, from Halloween that we're using. So, like he said, there's a lot of moving parts, but we want to have an interactive story that we're telling from kind of the point of view of subject matter experts in the healthcare industry. And like Matt said, we're using Power BI and Office 365, but by no means is that the only way to pull off these collaborative scenarios and these BI scenarios, but it's just kind of the vehicle we're choosing today.
So before we actually dive into the first scenario, we just want to level set. I know a lot of people in here are in healthcare, but there were a few hands that did not go up. So just to kind of level set on some of the definitions here, and if I'm wrong, I've got plenty of people in here to correct me. So I'm by no means a healthcare expert, so feel free to correct me here. But a couple of the personas that we're using is one is called a medical informaticist. So this is really kind of think of it as like this BI guru that has intense medical knowledge, right? So this is going to be our indication. We talked about Halloween costumes. We talked about indications. So we're going to be playing multiple roles. So I'm hoping that when people are on the recording, we're going to have to just kind of discreetly say who we are. But that'll kind of help you identify who we're acting as, right? Because we're going to be switching roles a little bit during our scenarios. But this medical informaticist is kind of that BI guru that also has medical experience. They could even be a practicing physician. So it's really kind of the culmination of that medical industry experience with that savvy analytic mindset in terms of how do we optimize or improve healthcare performance, right? The second one is the revenue cycle management, right? So as we this is going to be the revenue cycle management here, right? And that's going to be a little slightly distracting for me to look at the screen with that on, but I'll do my best. But that medical, or that revenue cycle management role is really trying to facilitate the process of pay per procedure to more of a quality of care model, right? So instead of transactions within the hospital, hospital providers are now incentivized for quality of care, right? And how do we get there? And so a big theme there is going to be order set compliance. So you're going to hear order set compliance throughout this session. Is there anybody that is familiar with the order set compliance? Okay, so order set compliance is kind of think of it as like a template. If we can diagnose this specific condition, here is the template that we may do. This is a list of best practices or labs or procedures that we need to do to vet this out or to evaluate this diagnosis, right? So it's basically a template applied to specific symptoms or conditions that help us kind of optimize costs, right? So instead of spending a lot of money on various labs and follow-ups and specialist referrals, we can use an order set to get the patient faster and more efficient care, and also cut costs so that we can be more profitable as a healthcare organization. Okay? So Mike's going to kind of touch on some of the challenges in that space.
Yeah, and so what I would say as far as challenges go, a lot of my customers that I meet with, what I find is that they're very smart, very capable people, but they lack either the server infrastructure to pull it off, they lack the client tools to pull it off. Then there's, since they're kind of stovepiped or cordoned off in terms of their respective duties, it's very difficult to communicate and collaborate between disparate groups. So I found it's not a lack of intelligence, it's more of a lack of ability in terms of communication, collaboration, sharing, BI tools on the client side, and then server resources to communicate and collaborate.
So for those people in IT, you'll probably nod your head when there's these people within the business, people within IT that have tons of domain knowledge, right? They've been around forever, they know all the systems, they know all the terminology, and they're kind of hidden to new people, right? So a new person comes into the organization, they're trying to learn the applications, they're trying to learn the terminology and where everything exists. And it's very difficult for us to find that person, right? If I'm new to an organization, I don't know anybody, how do I know where to go and who to go to, right? There's generally a portal that I can go to, SharePoint, and search for documents and hopefully find the information that I want. So we're going to walk through this first scenario in those shoes, right? So I'm going to be the revenue cycle manager here, and obviously I'm trying to improve order set compliance, so it's going to be hard for me to keep a straight face with these on, but so I'm trying to improve order set compliance, and I don't know who to go to, okay? So I don't know where the information is that I need. And so I'm going to reach out, right? And in this case, I'm going to reach out, and this medical informaticist, Mike here.
Very, very geeky.
Yes,
point, right?
very geeky. We're not biased here, so we're actually geeks at nature as well.
Geeks at heart.
Yeah. So Mike is actually going to see this request and help me out, right? And we're going to kind of enact that scenario really quick here.
And just from a Microsoft standpoint, we actually are using Yammer quite a bit in our day-to-day lives, and it is great for collaboration. So you might see a little Yammer usage today.
All right. Wow, that resolution is fun.
We got to pray to the demo gods that be kind to us today.
Wow, let's maybe refresh.
What if you refresh it? Maybe you can change your resolution and.
Holy crow!
I would maybe just do it from.
Let me just do this.
Yeah.
So you can see I'm logged in as George Katagiris. I'm the revenue cycle manager. I'm going to go in, and you can see that I belong to specific groups within the organization. So I would like to come in here and make a request that I'm looking. And you can see that it's tagging it to that group, right? So I'm just going to kind of go back to my business here and go into Outlook and start to do other activities as I send this request out, right? So I didn't send an email out, right? I just posted to a forum, and I'm waiting for someone else to kind of pick that request up, right? Because I don't know where to go. I might go into SharePoint and start to search or work on other things like email.
Right. So I'm now looking in the medical quality review in Yammer. I see that Dr. Katagiris is looking for the medical, that George Katagiris is a medical quality review officer looking for information on ORSET compliance. What I'm going to do is talk to George and say, hey, George, I've got some information for you here. I've just completed the first version of the order set utilization report. Take a look and let me know what you think. So I'm posting that back on Yammer, and it's also got a link to the Excel spreadsheet.
So you can see that I was notified here on my desktop, right? So I'm going to go ahead and I see that Mike has responded to that message. He supplied a report in there, and he says that I completed my first version of this, like Mike just said. So I'm going to go ahead and take a look at that report. Anybody got a good joke? It's there. All right. So I'm in here, and I can see that there's a few different tabs. This looks like we've got some diagnosis related groups in here. We've got some provider information, some order set metrics. So this looks generally like the information that I need, but I'm not really sure how to interact with this. I don't know how to use it, and there's a couple various reports available. So I'm going to reach back out to George or Mike and say, this is great. Can you set some time up? That was really good typing in front of an audience. Come on, can I get a clap or anything? Nothing? All right.
So great, can you set some time up to review? Here, let me reply to that.
So we're going to beat the dead horse a little bit in this, right? We're really going to be spending a lot of time in Yammer, right? And this isn't, it's very easy to look at it at surface, right? We're just typing back and forth, why can't I do this in Lync? Or why can't I do this in Instant Messenger? Why can't I do this in email? And the reason, we can certainly do that, right? But we have to know who we're talking to. And we also have to remember not to be selfish, right? Because by the fact that we're collaborating in this environment means that other people can see this conversation. And what does that mean? That means there's a lot of other people in the organization that have very similar questions than what I do, right? They're also looking for reports. They're also looking to get questions answered. And so by putting all of this in one central location, this all has search enabled as well. So now I don't have to search through documents. I can search through conversations, and I can see what people are talking about and how they're solving their problems as well. So that's really why we're kind of hammering that message home on the Yammer piece. So it looks like Mike's replied to me, and he's saying that he wants to talk right now. So I'm going to go ahead and ping Mike and say, hi, Mike. Can I get a hi, Mike?
Yeah, got it.
Can I get a hi, Mike?
Hi, Mike.
Here's who was the woman that said hi, Mike? Oh, I don't want to hit you in the head with this, but it's a little Kit Kat bar. There you go. Sure.
All right, so Mike's going to come back and he's going to say, yeah, I can talk right now. I just offered to do so.
And this happens all the time at Microsoft, right? We're working on Yammer. Matt pings me about something. We'll set up a Lync call. We'll connect, and there we go. So let me answer the call here.
And so while Mike and I, we're teammates, we also mentioned that we're in the field at Microsoft. So we're not here in Redmond. We're not next to the program managers. We're not even across the campus from them. So it's very difficult for us to just run into them. But by using Lync or by using Yammer, we actually have very close access to them. I was somewhat intimidated coming to Microsoft and saying, I've been reading this guy's blog for like 10 years, and he's just green on Lync. Is that okay? And it actually is. So I thought that was kind of neat. So Mike, yeah, thanks for getting back to me so quickly, George, on that information. I saw the reports you sent over, but I'm not really sure how to work with that. Is that something maybe you could walk me through?
Yeah, I can walk you through it. I can also share my screen if you want to see that. And if it's okay with you, what I can do is I'd like to record the session today, just so we can have that IP captured. And I can start this recording.
Maybe you could share your screen.
Yeah, let me share my screen, and then what we'll do is we'll capture this. We'll ultimately save it back to Yammer, and we'll have all that IP goodness kind of saved into Yammer if that works for you.
That's fantastic. Good? Yep.
All right, so you can see my screen?
I can.
Okay, great. Yeah, so what we've got here is, you talked about order sets and the value of order sets and how this really keeps us kind of on task as far as our procedures go. And for us as an organization, how order set utilization is super important. What I've done is I've actually captured a bunch of data, and I've pulled it from our EMR, and I've got things like orders, I've got diagnosis-related groups, attending providers, cost, and The nice part about this is that I've actually been able to capture it all, pull it all into a Power Pivot model, and save it where we can slice and dice the data. We get a super high performance data set, as well as we can do things like add fields to the data. We can add things like, if you see down here, I've actually taken this admissions data, and I know our organization really cares about things like order set utilization. So as I add these different attributes to the data, we get the ability to surface that across things like this tool and or our collaboration tools like SharePoint. So we publish this, it becomes a part of SQL Server, it becomes part of SharePoint, becomes part of Power BI if we want.
Great. So how can this help me with my objective of investigating order set compliance?
Yeah, so as far as order set compliance goes, we've got the order set utilization here, and I'll click on that right now. You can see we've got all the order sets that we care about for the organization. Now, if I go back to this dashboard, we can actually search on a certain service line. So I guess I'm curious, do you care about a specific service line today that you want me to kind of filter on and give you some reports back on that?
You know, actually, Dr. Smith has been bugging me for some more information on the cardiology department specific to surgery.
Okay.
So maybe we could take a look at that. So this is great. So these are all different filters that I can work with on my own to investigate this information.
Right. So I filtered by surgical. Now, is there a certain time of the year that you care about as far as admission goes?
Yeah, well, since we're in the fourth quarter now, maybe that would be relevant for us to take a look at.
All right, I'll use this time filter then. We've got that filtered. So again, all our information is filtered. I'll shut down this filtering capability here, and then let me select kind of a well-known ability in Excel is this quick analysis. So if we want to look at our costs, in terms of our direct costs are super important here, obviously, but we want to look at that in terms of a chart. And so I can quickly kind of look at that, get a sense that our variable direct costs are the highest here. So we could save that out if we wanted, but it's just something to be aware of in terms of that ability.
Okay, so if we go back into the order set utilization, is that actually filtered as well?
Oh, yeah, that's filtered as well.
Okay.
So let me kind of zoom into that, and we'll capture that in the video we're making as well. So.
Okay. So I know 236, that's what Dr. Smith has actually been looking at, so maybe we could take a look at that as well.
Yeah, so we've got 3 doctors in that, and it looks like Dr. Olafson is kind of the last man in line there.
Yeah, that's a bit of an eye strain. Is there any way we could kind of get some visual indications in terms of what we should identify? Yeah,
so we've got these numbers here. I'm highlighting them here. Let me show you some abilities in Excel to just kind of take our basic Excel abilities, come in, do things like conditional formatting, and highlight those so we can see which are the lowest. And it looks like Dr. Olafson is the lowest here. So let me do that again.
Okay.
Go into this conditional formatting and highlight those.
So do we have the ability to see if there's maybe an outlier in there, or is that a trend?
Yeah, let's look down into his data here, and we can see that in general he's kind of lagging as far as the national average number of days, as well as his order set compliance is off, and his costs are pretty high. So I'll kind of zoom into that.
Okay. Well, this is fantastic. I think this is definitely something I can get back to Dr. Smith. Mm-hmm. I know that he's on the road a lot. He goes to a lot of different conventions. What's the best way for him to get access to this?
Yeah, the best way is probably to access it. I have a link here that I'll share with you. Let me save it out to Yammer, and the best way is to go to SharePoint Online, and I'll save that out to the session as well as I've got another training session that I've done that I'll save out to Yammer. But I'm going to send you this link that you can go to, and once you go to that, you can see all the reports that we have up on SharePoint. Okay, and is that something, you said you were taking a video on this training, is that something you could also post up? Yeah, that's also part of that link I just sent you. Okay, so great. You got a video link. I'm creating a session today. I'll save that back up as well, but you should be able to see both the Power BI site where you can see that online, and let me go to that site right now. So in terms of the ability to share that workbook I just showed you, we've got this Power BI site, and this Power BI site gives us the ability to do things like featured reports, as well as we've got our own report stored in this location as well. So if we scroll down, I've actually saved it here, and you can do things like come in and favorite it. If I favorite this report, it's going to show up in our Power BI favorites. And by having something favorited, I can go to my Power BI site, I can pull back all those reports that I have stored across all these SharePoint sites, and I can collect them all in a single location. So what I'm hearing here is I don't just work within one site, right? Because I work across different lines of business. But you're saying that even though they're on different sites, I can actually store them all in one location? Yeah, so they can be kind of collaborated all in the same location right here in your And this is specific to me individually? That's specific to you individually, exactly.
Okay,
yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
that's great.
Yeah.
So I know that that Dr. Smith, like I said, he's on the road quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
I know that he has a tablet. Is that something that he can view this on that tablet?
Exactly. So there's the SharePoint site we just showed you. There's also a Power BI application. Once you favorite something, it will ultimately show up in the Power BI mobile application. Okay. That application will load with all those favorites that we just showed you, and ultimately that will give you the ability to kind of look at these reports. You have to have an internet connection to do that, but all the favorites that you added will show up there as well.
Okay. Okay. So my favorites sync across the application as well.
Right.
I know that when he's on the plane, he's we're a little too cheap to pay for Wi-Fi on the planes right now.
Right.
Is there a way for him to get a disconnected copy of this?
Exactly. So if you want to go download a copy of this, you can. I'm going to put this up in Yammer as well. But I'll go to Yammer. I'll send you the location to this, and we can. We'll be able to save this kind of for future reference as far as the download goes. So you can come in here, you can download this file, and you can leverage it later, and I'll click on that right now and kind of show you that.
Okay, great.
So click on that, you look on, here's our spreadsheet, you click on this twice, and you can download a copy, and we click on that copy, it downloads it to your favorites or on your disk, and then you can leverage that copy disconnected. Okay,
so I'm hearing I can access across multiple devices, multiple browsers, as well as with or without internet connectivity.
Yeah, you see I'm running Chrome, you can run IE, you can run Firefox, Opera, Safari, whatever you want, whatever browser works for you.
Great. I know that, can we hop back at that report again really quick? Because it looked like you had some information around length of stay as well as some mapping. Is there any chance we could take a look at that?
Yeah, let me go back to that. As far as length of stay goes, let me kind of talk to this really quick. I know that order set compliance is a really big deal for us. As far as cardio goes, there's what we have here on the y-axis is order set utilization. On the x-axis, we have length of stay. So it looks like from a surgical standpoint in cardiology, you're a little bit left of the length of stay here, but your order set utilization is really good. So what I'd encourage you to do is try to figure out a way to improve your length of stay here, since it's a little bit left. But I know that cardiology is a challenging field, and sometimes all that order set compliance plus length of stay is a difficult combination to master.
Okay.
Yeah, and as far as the geospatial pieces, let me just show you something around that. And we have an admissions map. And the admissions map actually goes out to a web service. It calls that web service, pulls back where all of our constituents and customers are coming from. And in this case, you can see that it surfaced mainly around Des Moines, but we can kind of get a sense of our demographics there as well.
Okay, well, we've been doing some gender-based analysis. Is that something that we could pull in? I know that that's also recorded in the demographics of our patients.
Yeah, let me go to the map, and we can filter here in the map. We can either filter by zip code or admission count. So I'm going to remove a little bit of the noise here and zoom in a bit. And then you can see on the right side of our map here, we've got things like age, gender, lots of different characteristics of our population. If I select gender here, then we're going to see that we have a lot of, it's essentially female dominated. So we've got a lot of OBGYN patients, we've got a lot of pediatric patients, and it's something to consider from a marketing standpoint that we might want to consider as we kind of look into the data. Kind of something that would also validate that is if you look at your attending provider and their specialty.
Okay.
Let's look at that real quick.
So this will show us what the actual procedures that are being done, huh?
Exactly. So
Okay.
as I highlight that, you can see it kind of confirms that we're looking at things like OBGYN, pediatrics, and family medicine.
Okay, that's fantastic. This has been very helpful. Thank you very much for your time. I'll certainly follow up to Dr. Smith and see if he can't, if this won't help him as well.
Sure.
All right. So I know that was a very long scenario, very long orchestration there. But I think we're trying to deliver a very powerful message, right? We just discussed a lot of things, right? We discussed self-service, we discussed data analysis, we discussed collaboration, we did training, right? So we captured all of that. So every time Mike popped the URL into Yammer, we recorded that. So anytime someone else comes in, they can now read that themselves, right? They can now be self-sufficient. They don't have to reach out to anybody in this case. And if they do, they know exactly who the expert is, right? But the idea here, since I have a lot of IT resources, how many of you get these like 5 times a day on your cube, right? You get either another developer looking for business rules, a business user asking a specific question, well, how is this calculation, or where do I go to get this, where do I go to get that? This from being a developer for quite some time and getting that a lot, and I embrace that, right? I like to help people. That's just kind of in my nature. But it's really difficult for you to focus on the work that you're supposed to be working on when you get so many distractions. So this really kind of, again, breaks down the barriers, makes developers more productive. Imagine that, a social tool that actually makes developers more productive. And how are we doing that? We're freeing up your time, right? We're enabling other people, business users that really, they don't care how this is built, right? They don't care what the fields are. They don't really care. Some may do, right? But they really want to get the answer to their question, right? So we really want to provide them an environment that they can do that in the most self-sufficient manner. Any questions? Can we get some feedback on that maybe? Yeah. If you could maybe stand up to that microphone, that'd be great. Thanks. There might be is there a switch on there maybe? Or you could just yell, booming voice.
Well, I've never used Yammer before.
Okay.
I feel like if I posted a question like that, there might be 20 to 30 people that could respond back, but all of them would feel someone else will respond back. And at the end, there might be no response at all. So we have tools, so we use like email, or we have other systems where you can really assign like tickets to other people, and then they, respond back and complete it that way.
Yeah.
So have you used this a lot and it worked well?
Well, so I know we have distribution lists still, right, at Microsoft. So, there are specific product distribution lists. So I'll have questions about specific products. And we have a BI at Microsoft Yammer group. And in certain cases, I don't get the response that I need. So I actually reach directly out to that distribution list, okay? And so, yeah, someone will respond to that. They'll answer my question. I'll get the information that I need. And what I generally do is I will copy that email response into Yammer, right? Because we're trying to cultivate collaboration, right? So we want to record. I want to take what I learned and let everybody else know that, right? Because they may have similar questions. So if I don't get a response in Yammer, so no one else is going to ask the same question because, oh, he didn't get an answer, why would I, right? So I think that, it's got to be this collaborative environment where everybody's really trying to help each other. And I think that this kind of helps facilitate that.
Now, does this integrate also with SharePoint?
It does, yes. So we'll get to another scenario and show you exactly how closely it does integrate with SharePoint. Yeah?
How do you address the security? Like, if you don't want everybody, doesn't need access to those Excel files or the Powerpoint files, how do you address the security there?
So what we're using is groups, right? So we're using Office 365 has SharePoint behind the document management piece, right? Power BI does as well. So we're using SharePoint security with Active Directory to enforce that security. Yammer is the same way, right? We can explicitly add people to groups so that they can or cannot see these conversations that are happening. So.
And the refresh of the data in a later stage?
Great question. So you want to talk about the gateway?
Yeah, there's a data management gateway. The data management gateway is a proxy between your the Power BI site and your on-premise data. So it essentially allows you to leverage a private VPN connection that connects from your organization up into SharePoint, and you can refresh with that data management gateway, which is just a piece of software that you run on-premise that sets up a VPN up to Microsoft, and then you can refresh that data on a schedule if you want. So it allows you to do things like, and we're adding things like analysis services connectivity as well. So you'll be able to connect to an AS Cube on-prem, or a SQL Server, or an OData feed, something like that on-premise, and pull that data up into a Power BI site and consume that data on a refresh schedule.
And the security flows through the login account?
Exactly. So it's, true to form to all Microsoft products, Active Directory is typically first and foremost, where you have all your permissions through Active Directory, users and groups, whether it's in SharePoint or on-premise through a connection string, and that will control the federation of your security information between your organization and Microsoft. Any other questions on that? Or
on that? Yeah, for the people that were at the keynote yesterday, there were some really big announcements there, right? And I think Mike might have covered that a little bit, but the fact that we're supporting live connectivity to analysis services is a huge announcement.
Huge request.
Huge request, right? So, I mean, we represent the enterprise space, so we represent some of the largest accounts in our territory. And there's been a lot of investment in analysis services. Who has tons of analysis services cubes? Yeah, a lot. That's a huge investment, right? So for me to ask you to go take Power Pivot and go build semantic models on top of all those cubes is a lot of work that was kind of the purpose of analysis services cubes, right? So the fact that we're providing connectivity to on-prem to those cubes, so you don't have to re-engineer and re-architect those data models, that's a very big announcement. And that's, I mean, I was clapping, I was applauding, because that saves a lot of work. So we're going to move into the next scenario. You can see that I'm now switching into, yeah, question. Yeah, so we're going to be back in Yammer. But what I did is I actually went to a group, and you can choose to be notified if you're a member of that group when anything is posted there. So that little fly up that was on my screen that notified me, that was a way that it was tagged, right, when I went to a group. But just like Twitter, you can go in and you can @sign and you can tag people. You can hashtag in there as well. So if you're looking for themes on specific topics, absolutely. I'm not sure. I need to double check on the reporting on that. Yeah. Okay, so our next scenario here is around care coordination and mobility, right? So what we're going to do here is, from that first scenario, I've got another doctor here with me now.
Doctor's
yeah,
scary.
He just scrubbed in, and so what we've done here is in that first scenario there was that brief piece talking about Dr. Smith, right? And Dr. Smith was a colleague of George Katageris, right? And so there was a doctor identified as needing some help with order set compliance. So we're going to kind of walk through how that information was shared and how we're going to improve that order set compliance, okay? So I'm going to be Dr. Smith, and then I have Dr. O over here.
And I'm the doctor that was a little bit delinquent in terms of my order set, so I need a little remedial help here.
All right, so what I'm going to do, and I don't have a Dr. O, so I'm going to email Mike here. I'm going to send him an email and say, you know what, I was reviewing your order set compliance. George Katageris supplied me with this report. I got this information. I think this is something we should talk about because I think there's some things we can do to help improve your order set compliance. So I'm going to go ahead and send that off.
So I just got an email from Dr. Katageris, and I'm going to ping him back. And actually, Matt Smith, it says that the order sets are problematic, and I kind of get that. So let me ping him back and see what's going on.
So what happened is when I sent that email, I sent it when I was at my desk, and now I'm on the road, right? So I'm no longer sitting at my desk. I'm hoping that Dr. Rowe will respond here shortly. And you see that I got a notification, okay? You guys all know my password now, that's all right.
And this
is a risky demo here because this is my actual phone, so if I get any like embarrassing text messages or anything, just you know.
His phone's been going off all week, so it'll be amazing if he doesn't get 10 texts while we're talking here.
Okay, so you can see that Dr. O has pinged me, and I'm going to say, hi. Can you call me? Right, because it's kind of difficult for me to type here, so maybe give me a call. So he's starting to call me through Lync. Obviously, I'm on my Lync client here. Hey, Dr. O, how's it going?
Hey, Matt, what's going on?
I take it you got my email?
I did. I've been struggling a little bit with order set compliance, as you saw in that report. Yeah.
Okay. Is there anything you're doing about it? Or?
Yeah, I'm taking some training on it. I've registered some training, so
okay.
I'm hoping to get some help there.
That's great. Well, yeah. Order set compliance, especially in the cardiology surgical area, is an area that I kind of spent a lot of time and research on. Mm-hmm. I was hoping maybe we could walk through a couple patients, and that might help kind of train you before your training, to give you some additional ideas.
That'd be great. Yeah.
All right, great. So are you in front of a device?
I am. Yeah, I got my Windows device right here, Windows 8.
Okay. Well, why don't you go ahead and pull up Airstrip, and we can take a look at some of their lab work.
Okay. Great. Okay.
Okay, you're in there? Okay. So what we're going to do, let's go take a look at some of your undiagnosed patients here. And we can see that Jonathan Blair looks like he's not diagnosed yet. So if we can go in here, maybe we can take a look at his lab work, because some of the research that I've been doing has identified that elevated levels of troponin could indicate some abnormalities within ECGs. So if you look here at troponin, you can see that across history, you know, he was actually relatively low, and then there's this kind of trend here where it's been elevated. So
yeah, it's got me baffled. I'm kind of confused on that.
okay, well let's go back and hop over to the ECGs really quick.
Okay.
And if you focus specifically on eye in there, we can take a look at that specific ECG.
Okay.
And towards the end, you kind of see this downward trend on that specific heart rhythm.
Sure.
So what I found is that elevated level of troponin is actually impacting ECGs in this manner. So my recommendation would be, I mean, since I'm really spending a lot of time in this, I'd like to kind of reach out to patient Blair, maybe schedule a follow-up, and we could meet with him together to kind of review some additional labs.
Yeah. I mean, he's outside of our organization, but that'd be great. Yeah, give him a call.
Okay, great.
Sure.
Well, I'll go ahead and set that up, and then we'll get back to you here soon next week.
All right, thanks a lot for your help. Appreciate it.
Okay, no problem.
All right.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back, and I'm still on the road here. So I'm going to end that call with Dr. Rowe. I'm going to go back to my contacts here. You can see under other contacts, I actually have John Blair in here. What you can't see, and let me kind of show.
I've got Skype running on here too now, right? So this is my patient Blair. Let me put my patient.
And
Blair.
Mike is now transitioning.
I don't know why this is a patient, but I guess it's a small, or it's just like a, what is this?
I just wanted him to wear that little frog.
Yeah, he wanted to embarrass me in the.
So Dollar Store is great for Halloween costumes, but they didn't have any medical garb, and then so
I'm a
I
patient,
thought that was
and I'm actually running Lync here too. So this is pretty interesting, right?
Skype.
I'm sorry, Skype. Yeah.
Okay, so that's kind of the message here, right? You're looking at my phone. You see that it's Mike Wilm at live.com, but it's actually John Blair. That's our patient, right?
That's right.
He's actually running Skype. So I'm running Lync, and I'm going to give him a call.
Right.
And so now we're actually calling outside of the organization. Lync is an enterprise tool. We're calling now a consumer tool, right?
So there we go. Here's my call coming in, and I'll answer it. And then we're live. Yeah. Oh.
Okay.
Cool.
Hi, is this John Blair?
This is John.
Hi, this is my flight reminder.
Yeah, Matt's got to fly right after this. But, how you doing?
So this is Dr. Smith. I'm actually working with Dr. O a little bit, and we noticed some elevated levels in your lab work, and I probably shouldn't be telling you this over the phone.
Right.
But what we'd like to do is we'd like to schedule a follow-up for an additional round of lab work, just to make sure that there's not any continued abnormalities there.
Okay, I guess got me a little worried, but I trust you guys. So.
Yeah, at this point, I really don't think there's anything to be worried about. I think we're just being precautionary here, so we just want to get you in and see if there's any training that's occurring, and see you next week. How does that sound?
Great. Well, thanks for calling me on Skype.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So let me hop back over.
I think that's just as a postmortem. I think that's really cool. I didn't realize until this week that you could actually do a federated call between Lync and Skype. So I think that's pretty neat. And a lot of my customers have been asking that for years. And anyway, so go ahead. Matt.
Yeah. So really, I mean, we now just took a BI report, right? I sent an email, and across multiple devices. We're using modern applications, we're using different communication technologies, and we're going from different care physicians all the way directly to the patient themselves, right? We all know Skype has video capabilities as well, so there's a lot of telehealth scenarios where we can use video calls to actually interact with the patients, right? So these are some of the things that are kind of not directly BI, right? But business intelligence is all about improving operations, right? Improving performance, making things more efficient, right? And so that information really kind of initiated this work to actually happen, right? So that's kind of the message we're trying to deliver there. Any questions about that specific scenario? I got a candy bar in my throat. Yeah?
I have one question. As far as, say, like you send in an EKG or whatever information you send in them, and he's looking at it and he goes, oh, hey, I just talked with the patient, and here's the latest lab results or whatever. How does he get it from back from his device back to the main system and has it link up so that new information's in the system? Yeah,
I'm this is my assumption here is that he would be putting that back into the EMR itself, right? So whether that's through through a mobile app or whether when he sits back down at his desk, yeah, I think that's where it would happen. So did that answer your question?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, as far as, because if he's got his mobile device, say he's somewhere where he's disconnected from, but yeah, if he went back to his office and linked up to his computer or whatever, said, upload new information.
Yeah.
There are times I'm on the road and I actually can get a Lync session, and if you have a device like like a cellular iPad or something like that, you can actually have a Lync session where you can see a desktop, and so Matt could actually share his desktop with me. While I'm not that I would promote driving down the road and looking at a Lync session, but you can actually see if you were looking at that application, you could actually share it with me over Lync.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Can you catch? Thanks. All right, so the next scenario is, again, collaboration focused, but what we're doing here is I'm still Dr. Smith, right, and I'm doing some analysis, right? I've got access to this portal, I'm looking at some reports, and the report doesn't exactly answer my question. There's a little bit more that I want to see that's not there. So again, I'm going to reach out for help, I'm going to get some assistance, and I'm going to get some education. Sorry. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and pull up Chrome in this case. Not that I'm advocating for it, I'm just showing cross-browser capabilities. And I'm going to log into the portal. Any other questions while I'm doing this?
The nice part about this portal is that you can see up top you've got things like Outlook, Calendar, People, Yammer, OneDrive, your BI sites. It's kind of a one-stop shop for all this stuff. And then like Matt has here, you've got Power BI, you've got reports, presentation layers. So it's kind of a one-stop place to do kind of all your collaborative work.
Oh, okay. Glad you told me that before. You guys missed all the fireworks. I was just doing all this really fancy stuff and you missed it all.
Yeah, you missed the demo.
I sense some cynicism in your voice. All right. So again, logged in as Dr. Smith here. I'm doing a little bit of analysis on this report once it comes up.
And so what you're going to see here is kind of some of the more self-service BI aspects of Power BI. And like Matt said, I mean, it's very login dependent. So once you're logged in as a certain persona, then that will kind of tie into all your client tools like Lync, like Yammer, and give you kind of an end-to-end experience that allows you to quickly collaborate with everyone else in your organization. So
I'm looking at drug cost and usage here within the facilities, and you can see that I've got on this left side, I've got drugs and costs. Along the bottom here, I have prescriptions, the number of prescriptions and the drug, and across the top you see that I've got some costs over time for those drug prescriptions as well. And you can see there's a general downward trend here, but I know that the actual report hasn't been updated for all of 2013's numbers. But I want to do some forecasting here to see what this is going to look like in the future. And you can see that downward trend is continuing for some and changing for others, right? But I know that the numbers aren't necessarily accurate here because, like I said, that 2013 hasn't fully been reported. So I'm going to go ahead and say, I know this is wrong. It was actually almost closer to 4 billion or 0.4 billion. So I'm going to go ahead and change that. And I know this one is also going to be a little bit higher as well, right? So this is going to change my projections a little bit here, but I do know that there's some seasonality in this information. We get these quarterly, right?
And that is a new feature, right? Being able to readjust those numbers. And
It is. So you can see now that I changed the seasonality of the data, I just know that we get the data 4 times a year, right? And that's how many times it comes into the data model itself. IT tells me that they refresh at the end of each quarter. And I want to know how accurate this is going to be. So I'm going to go ahead and look at what my confidence interval is here. So I can say with 66% confidence that in 2015 we're going to have this level of this drug, right? So what this is doing is, I'm a business user, right? I'm not a data scientist, but I'm doing forecasting, I'm doing predictive analytics here on the fly in the browser without any special tools, right? So this is really kind of how I'm enabled to do this. But again, this isn't really, I would really like to kind of see all 4 of those together. I want to see prescription, I want to see drug, I want to see cost, and I want to see time. And this isn't really going to answer my question. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go out to Yammer, And as you can see, this is all embedded right in. And I can't, that's, see, I was talking trash about the typing before. Yeah, go for it. I'm already done typing, so you're going to have to hold that question.
Okay.
I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
For the forecast you answered there, is it pure functions built out in the Power BI, or actually users need to have them scenario set out how the forecasting should go?
This is all done, right? This is all done as part of the service itself, right? So I'm not training any models. I'm not using any specific algorithms. We actually provide that as part of the service. We've done studies to say this is the most often used or the correct algorithm to use for this, right? So all it's doing is taking the data and it's essentially training it on the fly and applying that. Correct. Yep. Yep. And that's all through the browser. There's no tools I have to.
So, but in a real life business, there are a lot of assumptions need to be done, not just statistics. So, is there any other places we can build in that kind of assumption?
Yes, so we're actually going to have another scenario that's going to talk to more of the predictive analytics piece. I wouldn't bet the farm on this, right? This is great for what-if scenarios, kind of what trends could look like based on what history is, but by no means is this something that you would say we're going to make a huge investment in this based on this prediction here. So.
Yeah, it's not a power tool, but it's kind of, it gives you basic forecasting capabilities with some tuning like Matt can play with here. And like Matt's saying, if you want to do some more serious machine learning, then we'll walk into that demo in a sec.
So you can see that I've demoed this a few times, so I'm going to go in, and what I'm doing here, this is all within the same window. I don't have two windows open here, so this is embedded right within the report itself. So I'm going to go ahead and say, hey, I think this was the medical quality review. I'm going to notify them that, hey, I'm asking for a request on this report. Could you add these fields to this report, because that'll really help me understand my information a little bit more effectively. So again, kind of like in the first scenario, there's going to be a notification sent to anybody that's following that, and they have the ability to come in and collaborate on this. Now, when we were talking before about that Captain Planet scenario, right? This is all embedded. These are all kind of a cohesive platform. So what that means is SharePoint is running behind the scenes, right? SharePoint is fantastic for enterprise content management. So our reports are actually stored in SharePoint. They're presented through the Power BI UI, and we're linking those to this Yammer conversation. So you can see here that in the Yammer feed, if I actually go out and view this in Yammer itself, it's going to have a direct link back to that report, right? So I can click on that, and it's going to open the report for me. And then I can see, again, I can hit this flyout and see all the collaboration that's happening on that report. So this is, like I said, the integration here is something like we haven't had before. So I think that's a fantastic feature to display. So you can see that, again, Mike has kind of pushed back, which is good, right? IT should say, why do we really need this, right? And so he's pushing back and he's asking, I can certainly modify the report. Let's see. But will that answer all your possible scenarios? And I'm not really sure what he means. So I'm going to say, what do you mean? So he's going to respond back, and again, we're probably going to start a dialogue, right? We're going to start a conversation. So again, the live feed is kind of going as I'm still doing analysis on the report, and he's asking me to give him a call. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Hey, Mike, how's it going?
Hey, Matt, how you doing?
Good, good. Thanks for getting back to me so quickly. Is there a problem with is it too difficult to make a change to the report, or?
No, I mean, well, we are kind of overwhelmed with requests right now, and one thing I was going to tell you was that we do have a lot of that metadata built into the report. It's hard to tell that from a kind of a face value standpoint, but a lot of that intelligence is actually built into the model that we've published up into SharePoint. So I guess one thing I would ask is are you open to kind of looking at can I look at your screen? I sent you a link in terms of a new capability called Power Q&A. It's the ability to kind of use natural language queries against the data. And I was wondering if you could share your screen, we can kind of talk about some of the scenarios there. So I put that in Yammer in terms of that link.
Oh, okay.
But let me...
Not really sure what metadata is, but I'm certain.
Yeah, I know that's kind of
Okay.
super technical. But yeah, if you're able to see that link that I sent in Yammer, you click on that.
Okay.
What that's going to do, it's going to bring up the... And maybe you can get rid of that fly out there so it gets a little more visibility to it.
Sure.
Yeah, I can see your screen now. Now, so what this means is that I've put just about the whole kit and caboodle in terms of all the metadata or all the information about that report into that, into that link I sent you. And what this is going to allow you to do is
this actually looks kind of like my report.
It's a lot like your report, exactly. So you can actually just kind of type away into that text box if you want to add things like this text string and prescription to the end of that. It's going to allow you to kind of modify the report on the fly. And this is one of the big differentiators that Microsoft has, is this natural language query ability that's built into the tool that you can add, say, data intelligence, things like if you said and your process, or if you want to see it as a table, you could say as table.
So it's actually typing ahead for me, so it's almost like it knows what I'm looking for.
Yeah, it's intelligent in that sense that it can actually kind of give you some questions to ask of it, and things that it's suggesting. You can do sorting, you can do filtering. You can also save that query, up in the query window if you want, the URL.
Okay. So
as well. So you can save the URL if you want, and there's also in the right side where there's that call out pane, you can actually save your natural language query if you want to share that with your team and have that be a kind of a permanent part of your Power BI site.
Okay, so this actually looks a lot like Excel, the reports that I'm using in Excel. So I can actually go in and filter all this stuff. Right?
Yeah, so you've got filtering, and you can actually expose that entire data model and kind of play with different scenarios as well. So you saw the forecasting, you see the ability to kind of slice and dice the data, do filtering. You can save that as a natural language query if you want with that call out on the far right side.
Okay.
So I'm happy to extend the model and build these for you, but really what we're going to do is really empower you guys to do your own queries, to ask questions of it, so that I don't have to slow you down with a 2-week backlog or 4-week backlog on getting these reports back to you.
So what you're saying is I have the ability to come in here and query anything that's in the model itself without having to type any technical language?
Exactly. Just if you've got non-technical users, then you can just kind of type different scenarios, and then once you have the scenario selected that you like, you can then use the right pane to pick things like a table or chart, graph, scatter plot, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay, and so if I have this question over and over, I can actually add this as a feature question?
Yeah, so you're doing the right thing. Just go there, save it out, give it an icon that you want, and then it'll be part of your query. When you go back to the Power BI page, you'll see that as a saved query that you can just click on. So if you want to click on that now, it'll return that same query that you just asked of it.
Okay, so this is great. So as other people are finding common questions, they have the ability to feature that. And it sounds, you said that it actually saves it in the URL as well. So I don't even have to go there. I could just add that as a favorite. So if I have 50 different operational reports that I go through every single day, I can just now click through my favorites, and I don't have to rely on you to build that report for me anymore.
Right.
Okay.
Speeds it up. Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for your time.
Sure, no problem. There are. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I interrupted.
No, you're fine.
Go ahead.
Is this function available in Excel?
I'm sorry?
Is this function available in Excel?
This is where we kind of get into that true Power BI piece, right? A lot of the authoring tools are available in Excel, right? This actually requires specifically Power BI to interact with the natural language query. Yep.
Okay, so if my company is not after Excel, it won't be able to.
Correct. Yeah, they would need Power BI to do this. So the nice thing about this is when you create Power Pivot models, you upload them directly to the portal and you enable them for this, and away you go. So I mean, you can look here and see that this is the actual Power Pivot file that I uploaded to Power BI. And so I can go ahead and just select. These are all the ones I have uploaded, right? So let's say 2 models have the same field name. How does it know which one? It's got to make a guess. And if it's not right, I can come in here and I can change it, and then I can pin it to say any subsequent questions here, I can then know that it applies to this model, right? And so what we're doing behind the scenes, do you want to kind of talk about some of the synonym and...
Yeah, so like Matt's saying, what you can do is if you also have synonyms for, say, say an order, you want to call it ORD, or you want to call a patient PAT, or have some kind of secondary name for a given noun, then you can give synonyms in the context of either Power BI or Excel and add synonyms for all your objects in your system. Those synonyms will then be added to the model, and then you can type either the actual given name of that object or the synonym of it, and you can have an endless number of synonyms for it. So
how many of you guys have master data issues? Not issues, challenges. I guess I should say challenges, right? So you've got a lot of different terms for the same thing. That's kind of what synonyms help you do. So if one business unit calls it hot dogs and another calls it, whatever. Brats, right? Then you can put both of those terms in there, and it'll be able to interpret that as the same thing. Yeah.
There's
using Power View or is it using Excel?
So in this case, the visualization is actually Power View. The data model is actually a Power Pivot workbook that's been published in Power BI. Yep. So that's the nice thing is as we kind of build these data models, these reports in Excel workbooks, they then get uploaded to the portal, and we take advantage of all those capabilities that we built into that. So yeah.
And you can also leverage the portal to look at the most popular queries that are being written, the usage on the site. There's also some features I think that we saw announced this week in terms of being able to do a functionality called bump and shake. I don't know if you're going to be able to demo that or not, but
yeah, they actually showed bump and shake in the keynote yesterday. I don't know if you guys caught that, where they kind of just overlaid two visualizations on top of each other, and then it kind of turned into a scatter plot. So that's kind of the bump and shake capabilities.
And one of my customers got really excited when I showed them the integration between this and Yammer. So if you want, you can just take what you're publishing here, save it out, and Matt showed that out to Yammer. But it's a pretty neat capability that some customers are like doing backflips over when they see the collaborative abilities of that.
Yeah. So again, I'm gonna reiterate this for the IT folks is when you're essentially publishing a Power Pivot data model, right? And users have the ability to slice and dice across that entire model without you having to even create a single report, right? So if you publish that Power Pivot model to Power BI, they then have full access to all the fields and columns in that model, right? So they have quote unquote air quotes here for those that are listening to the recording, but unlimited combinations of the information that they're trying to do. So that's phenomenal. So there's a few things, right? So you're talking about kind of a change management process. So we have SharePoint behind the scenes. So we have SharePoint behind the scenes, so we can use a lot of the document management capabilities of SharePoint. So essentially, we could create multiple versions of that file. We can use drafts and publishing in there as well, right? So if you wanted to be able to create a new version and you didn't want other people to access it yet, right, you wouldn't necessarily publish that, right? So then you can push that out, you can test it, and you can access it because you have higher permissions. Yeah, so then when you roll it out, it's then going to go on top of this model, so your changes will then be encountered in there. Yeah. Yep. All right. They are not yet. No. Yeah, so we're actually, if you look here, there was a little button that I pushed, and we have a Silverlight version, we have an HTML5 version. So in the browser, we're supporting HTML5. I think we've already committed to, for reporting services, the core product, we're actually going to port that to HTML5 as well. So, yeah.
Right, so that transition is happening where we're going from Silverlight to HTML5, and the default right now is Silverlight, but soon the default will be that HTML5 view that Matt was pulling up. So I'm guessing that will be sooner than later. Yeah,
so so the next thing is kind of telling a story without saying, who asked me the question about geospatial at the beginning of the session? Someone asked me about geospatial information. He must have left. Okay, so the next one is kind of a different angle on the Power Maps. Has anybody not seen Power Maps? Okay, good.
Has anybody seen it?
Is anybody still awake?
Is anybody awake?
I'm just kidding. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and play this, and you can see that we've got a little bit different, right? This isn't a globe here. We're actually looking at patients being triaged through the actual property, right? You can see wait times, you can see how many patients are backed up in certain areas, and we can see that the operating room has a lot of activity. So we're going to drill into that and see what types of procedures are actually occurring in the operating room. And in this case, you're seeing that the circulatory system, namely the heart, is having the most operations, right, that are actually occurring. So we're going to drill into that a little bit further and see where in the heart we're doing these operations on. And you can see that we have the left ventricle, right ventricle, all these different areas of the heart that they're doing. So we want to kind of now take a different perspective. We want to look a little bit at the heart further to see where those procedures are happening in the heart itself, and is there any correlations to that, right? So I know that that was a lot of words in a very short period of time, okay? And so the message here is, you know, obviously having different views of the information. Instead of looking at bars and lines and numbers and columns, right, when we kind of overlay this, this is not geospatial data, but when we overlay this on top of what it's actually representing, it really gives us a different indication or different perspective of what's actually happening, right? So I think that's kind of the message there. The second message that I think is phenomenal about Power Maps is the ability to build these videos, okay? So what that means is I no longer have to find time on everyone's schedule, plan a meeting, plan an agenda, get everybody in the same room, right, and show them the report that I built. And then when someone that's looking at that report says, well, what about this? You can't really answer that question, right? But I just told you in 10 seconds where our activity is in the hospital, where the wait times are, how many patients, where are our bottlenecks, what are the procedures that we're doing, how many operations are we doing, and what areas of the heart that are actually happening, right? So I just told you an entire story in less than probably 10 seconds, right? So that's really powerful when you start thinking about the ability to apply BI in a short period of time, right? Because everybody's busy, no one has extra time. So you catch your manager at the water cooler, you have this video on your phone, and you show them, this is what I've been working on, this is what I'm seeing, what can we do about this? Right. Question?
How do you get the layout maps, that, you know, the heart map?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Bing. So yeah, these are called custom layers. It was introduced probably about a month ago in Power Maps. And all I'm doing is I'm finding an image, right, on Bing. I open it, and get this, Microsoft Paint, okay? And I find where my data points I want to locate, right? So there's an XY coordinates in that image, and I say that I want to put this, what do we call, left ventricle on this data point, and it's going to say it's 330 pixels by 727 pixels, right? And that's all I'm doing is just overlaying it in the coordinates. So I'm generating the data for where that coordinates is, and then I'm applying the measure to that location. So it's very, very straightforward.
This is...
I did. I uploaded it in Excel. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, he was saying use a search engine to capture to get an image. That image then you use in Paint, and so it can be an image of a building, in this case of a heart. It can be any layout.
Floor plan.
This is a really big customer request, is to do custom maps. So this, like Matt said, this is a new feature. We're releasing features in Power BI almost monthly. It feels like in Azure, you know, monthly, quarterly, whatever. But this is a really requested feature to be able to do. Kind of numerics on top of images. Yes, sir.
Can you do that in Excel?
Right now.
Yeah, this is Power Map is in Excel.
So if you have Excel 2013 Pro Plus, okay, you can go to powerbi.com. There's a link at the bottom that says Get Started. When you click on that, there's two links. There's one for Power Query and one for Power Map, and you can install that right on your Excel. Yep, you don't have to have Power BI to do it. Yeah. Yep, it's an add-in. Yep, it's an add-in that installs right on top of Excel. It's available. It does not require Power BI to do it. So you can do it today if that version of Excel. Mm-hmm.
So let's say if you have a video map of your layout,
mm-hmm.
you can overlay that with the data and then
absolutely
real time.
You just need a
so in this case, we're not doing real time, right? This is a video that I captured, right? And the model's only as fresh as your latest data refresh. But Visio does provide capabilities where you can bind specific shapes to data and do an automatic refresh. So that would be like a real-time dashboard that would be able to kind of change colors and indicators right on the Visio itself. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah.
If you supply the same data through the Power Map,
yep. So you would just have to refresh it. Yeah, you would have to refresh the workbook.
Yeah, it's just basically a screen capture, pixelating it at XY axis, and then you're off to the races.
Yeah, and the coordinates don't change, right? So when I come in and refresh the data and I play it over again, right, the bars are going to be different sizes and there's going to be different trends.
Let's get to our last scenario, because I think we need to wrap it up in 7 minutes. Are we down on the top of the hour?
Is this right? I've been running off this one. Oh wow, it's like 7 minutes slow.
Yeah,
okay.
So we can get this done, but let's do our last scenario. The last scenario is a predictive analytics scenario. I've actually got a Wisconsin breast cancer data set that's 700 samples of breast cancer data, and it's a machine learning problem where it's you basically have a classification for the breast cancer data, either true or false. And so it's a supervised learning, it's what's called a supervised learning problem in machine learning, where you want to try to take data that's been classified, and Matt's calling me, and Matt's going to play the role of a medical informaticist. And so I'm going to talk to Matt and say, hey Matt, what's going on? And Matt's more of a junior medical informaticist. He's got these samples of breast cancer data that have classifications, like I said. So he's got 700 points. He sent me the file. I did some analysis on it. He's wanting to know if another woman comes into the clinic and they can get a readout of these nine different data points on the breast cancer. Is it malignant or benign? So,
yep.
Is there a way to do that in a predictable way that's based on machine learning? Matt's kind of using me as a mentor to help him figure that out, and so we'll start the scenario then.
Yeah, thanks, Mike, for your time. I heard that you've been able to get some predictive results in some of the data sets that I had provided to you. Is there any chance you could kind of walk me through that and show me some of the capabilities and how we could potentially use that?
Yeah, sure. So what I'm going to do is hopefully share my screen here, my desktop, and let me know when you can see that.
I can.
Okay, so what we've got in Azure, and this is up in the Microsoft Cloud, is we've got a bunch of different capabilities up in Azure, and one of those is a machine learning capability. So you can see right here in this ML ability. When you fire up this machine learning, I've actually created a workspace here that allows me to kind of do an analysis through an experiment, and that experiment is, in this case, I'm going to run a neural network against the data that you sent me. So let me open up this experiment so it's kind of visible to everybody. And I know you sent me this ARFF file, and if I kind of zoom into that so everyone can see, there's this ARFF file that represents the data that Matt sent me. Now if I go into my samples here, what I did is I took this breast cancer data, and this is actually real breast cancer data from Wisconsin. If you do a Bing search on Wisconsin breast cancer data, you'll find it, and there's actually 700 samples here, Matt, that we're leveraging to kind of come up with a classification of this data. There's 9 attributes of the data. They're all numeric, and you can see that they're all kind of properties of this. This ARFF file is a way to classify all the different data points that you sent me here. So the first one is an ID, the second one clump thickness, uniformity of cell size, cell shape, marginal adhesion, etc. The final thing is a class, and the class is either a true or false. The unfortunate part is that the data either has a 2 for false or a 4 for true. So what we need to do is some kind of extract, transform, and load process to kind of rationalize this data and normalize it. And the nice part about this machine learning toolkit is, as I go back into this ML toolkit, is the ability to kind of do some of that slicing and dicing and filtering of the data as we pull this into this machine learning context. So let me come in here and expand this a bit. We've got the file that I just showed you, that Wisconsin data set. And the first thing I did, this is kind of all ETL work, and it's kind of poor man or woman's work, but what I did is I took that ID column. We didn't really need the ID column, so I filtered that thing out, this first thing. That's not really relevant. And now the next thing is to take all the attributes here except for this final one and do something interesting with it. So we took that. What I did then is I took a math operation, and what we're going to do with the 4 and the 2 is do a divide by 2 and then subtract 1. So 4s will become 1s and 2s will become 0s. So initially what we do is and I'm actually going to run this real time kind of in front of your eyes. So let me go ahead and into my Azure Blob Store here, make sure there's no files in that. And so while I explain this to you, I'm going to hit this run button, and as I run this, what's going to happen is it's going to take this file that I published up to the Azure Blob Store. It's going to take that and start doing all these transformations that I'm showing you. So again, the first thing we do is we divide by 2 here. The second thing we do is we do a subtraction operation. We subtract 1. As I go down here and show you these things, you'll see these little green check marks that are going to show up on my data. There's also missing values. There's question marks in some of the data here. If I go back into the data and look for, say, a question mark, some of these rows actually have question marks. And what I want to do with those question marks is I want to filter those out of my data set because I only have a few brief ones here. So here's an example of one of them. So I'm going to filter out those question marks with this value scrubber. It's going to pull out anything with the question mark from those rows. I'm going to take all this data and normalize it. And there's a link here to kind of get a sense of what these transformations are doing. In this sense, what we're doing is just we're normalizing the data to a common scale. So that's all built into the tool. And let me go back to the experiment here. The next thing what we're going to do is kind of this traditional splitting of a data set into a training piece. So we're going to train a model. In this case, I selected a neural network. We've got all sorts of different types of algorithms that we can run in the context of this ML toolkit. In this case, I'm just going to do a neural network. We can swap that out for other types of transformations if we want. And once I stop running this, I'll show you those. You can see that the other part of the data set, the 20%, once this model's been trained with the 80%, that 20% is going to be something that's we're going to take the 80% with a trained model, apply that trained model to the 20%, and that 20% will then give us a way to evaluate that model for accuracy and to score it. And eventually what we're going to do is write that out. You can see out here that I'm going to take that scored data set, write it out to a blob store, as well as the evaluation model, and write that out to a blob store. So we're almost done running it. We've got one more step to write it out here. And so pretty good timing. Any questions on this thus far? So I know you're kind of new to this.
This is like ETL on the browser?
This is like ETL up in Azure, yeah. And it's kind of a poor man's or poor woman's ETL in the sense that the things that we're doing are pretty basic, but you do get a full sense of all the different things that you can do in terms of taking this file and doing ETL type work on it.
Yes, the fundamental idea here is we're doing machine learning. We're applying some algorithms against the data. Right? We do have, if you were at the keynote yesterday, there was an Azure Data Factory that was discussed, right? And that's really going to be more for your heavy-duty ETL type operations. This is going to be more for preparing the data to do some predictive analytics on or some type of machine learning. So.
And the nice part about this is that once we've created this model, it writes the data out, and we've got Visual Studio down here. One of the newer abilities in Visual Studio is to actually connect to an Azure Blob store. So I've got this Azure Blob that I've saved out, and if I refresh that, we just ran these algorithms. We've got an evaluation model here, and I'll show you the accuracy on the model is now 97%, meaning that we ran that model against the 20% of the data. We came out with a 97% accuracy, which is amazing. So the next time Matt collects a sample, he can plug those 9 values into the algorithm, and with a 90% confidence level, we'll be able to see that he can diagnose these properly. You can see here that we had the original classification, whether it was benign or malignant, and then we have a scored data set that shows us whether it was actually correct or not. So one way we can test this is if we do a if statement here. If this value is equal to this value, then actually if it's not equal, we'll say if it's not equal, then let's say failed, the model failed, otherwise we'll say okay. And what I'll do is take this thing and just copy it down, and the only values that we'll see in a failed state are anything that didn't work out. So there's only a couple here that were in a failed state, so this one and probably one more since we had a 97% accuracy rate. So we've got a couple more fails here. So most of what we're saying is that for 97% of the women that we run these samples through, we're getting an accurate diagnosis of malignancy or benign. And that's all part and parcel of this algorithm that we were able to run, this neural network that we were able to run in the context of Azure Machine Learning.
So this is where we're going to get to the okay so, right, part. Because traditionally, data mining is not new. Predictive analytics is not new. It's been in analysis services for quite some time, right? And the challenge is you may have an analyst, and you can only do so much with what if, right? So the idea here is that we can actually serve this up we serve up an API, right? And this can be called as a web service. So what that means is if we have an application that we're inputting these lab results into, as soon as we input that, we can make a call to this model and predict whether or not it's malignant or benign immediately, right? So we no longer have to do batch loading and do this on large numbers of records, and then we get the results and we send them out, and then the doctor has to review that, right? Now we can do it on the fly, right? So that's why this is such a phenomenal piece.
And you can quickly, swap out different types of classification models here. And like Matt was saying, once this has been programmatized in Azure, you can actually call it as a web service and reuse that. So really powerful. So
okay.
that's that. I think we got to wrap up.
Okay, so we're in the home stretch here, folks. Thank you for hanging in here. So finally, we've kind of got a splash slide in here. This is going to provide some case studies, and you're welcome to take pictures. We're certainly going to have this deck available. I would say give me a couple hours because we need to update the latest deck into the site. But these are the case studies of healthcare companies that are using the Microsoft Cloud, right? So we're not saying that we're... So the great scenario is McKesson, right? So McKesson is a $138 billion annual revenue company. That is a huge company. And if their patient information is lost, right, if there was a compromise or a leak of patient information, it's $10,000 fine per patient. So if you took their entire patient population and added that up, that adds up to 4 times their annual revenue. That would be a significant blow to them if all that data was lost. So that's just kind of a testament to the confidence, the vote of confidence they're putting in the Microsoft Cloud, right? We've got one of the best cybersecurity teams in the world. We take security very seriously, and we've got legal teams in place to work with healthcare accounts around a business agreement addendum. You may have heard that. That's really a contract that kind of helps us stipulate what we can do and what the SLAs are in terms of those types of scenarios. So the framework's in place, the people are in place, and that's kind of that message that we wanted to deliver. So with that being said, thank you very much for hanging out with us. We hope you guys enjoyed kind of a different spin on how we're looking at BI in the healthcare space in the cloud. So thanks a lot. Don't forget your evals, please.